Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jamaica. It's August 12, 2024, and it's a rather somber morning for so many of us. This morning, we're going to be dealing with the horrendous murders that took place last night in Cherry Tree Lane in Clarendon. And with us today, we have members of the National Security Council that just finished their meeting. We have our Prime Minister, the Most Honourable Andrew Holness, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, the Honourable Dr. Horace Chang. We also have with us our Attorney General, Dr. Derek McCoy is here. In the room, we also have Vice Admiral Antoinette Weems-Gorman, our Chief of Defence Staff. We also have Mr. Fitz-Bailey, who is the DCP for Crime and Security, and today he is Acting Commissioner of Police. I also note that we have Colonel Desmond Edwards, who is the Director General of MOCAN. We also have the Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Ambassador Rocky Mead, with us. In terms of the order, we're going to go straight to it. So first, we're going to hear from the JCF, and Fitz-Bailey will be give us some details in relation to what actually happened last night and what the police will be doing. We also then will have Vice Admiral Antoinette Weems-Gorman, our Chief of Defence Staff. She will speak to the JDF's role in the response. And then following her will be the Deputy Prime Minister, the Honourable Dr. Horace Chang. And then we will have a statement from our Prime Minister, the Most Honourable Andrew Holness. So they will come in that order. So Fitz-Bailey, I ask you to be the first to come to the podium. Thank you.
Honourable Prime Minister Holness, Deputy Prime Minister Horace Chang, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I regret to report a devastating incident that occurred in Clarendon on Sunday, August 11, 2024, about 8:45 p.m., resulting in the loss of 8 innocent lives and injuring 9 others. The attack carried out by armed men in motor vehicles targeting 2 gatherings, leaving a trail of destruction and chaos. Tragically, 1 child is among the deceased and another is among the injured. Preliminary investigation suggests that the attackers used high-powered firearms indiscriminately, firing on the gatherings. Our team are working tirelessly to identify the perpetrators and their motives. We have deployed additional resources to the affected area to maintain order, provide support to the victims' families, and ensure the community safety. There was a birthday celebration being held by a 31-year-old bar owner of Cherry Tree Lane for her boyfriend, a 24-year-old mechanic of Cherry Tree Lane. Several persons from the community gathered at the celebration. Whilst at the location at First Lady's headquarters, a white Axio motorcar, registration, number and letter not yet ascertained, drove up. 3 men alighted with rifle and handguns. The gunmen opened fire at the group of persons who ran in different directions. After the shooting ended, it was discovered that several persons were shot and injured. They were taken to the hospital, and at the end of the count, 8 died, including an 8-year-old boy, and 9 were injured. including a baby of 1 year and 8 months. The police is following a number of theories and line of inquiries. At this time, I am unable to get into those details, but I guarantee you that we will ensure that the perpetrators are brought to justice. We are confident in the ability of the law enforcement agencies, and we are following some significant lead. This incident is so tragic, is a significant attack on, I consider, the state. And as I said yesterday, its intention is to create intimidation and fear within the community. We have imposed a curfew in the area, and we will be engaged in a lot of activities to ensure that those who are responsible are brought to justice. We will identify and locate the suspect. We will ensure to mitigate any form of reprisal by our presence. And we will, and I will appeal, and we are appealing to the public. If you have any information, please pass it on to us. This senseless act must be dealt with swiftly and proportionately. And the JCF and the law enforcement agencies are committed to ensure that that is done. Thank you.
Honorable Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, members of the National Security Council, other attendees, and members of the press, good morning. As indicated by Mr. Fitzbailey, the occurrence in Clarendon merits special attention by the security forces. And consequently, in addition to all the ongoing anti-gang task force operations and other security operations, I've directed a specific team to treat this particular incident. They will assist the JCF in conducting special and targeted operations to ensure that the perpetrators are brought to justice. We will continue to support the JCF in this and all their security operations to ensure that Jamaicans can feel safe. Thank you.
Honourable Prime Minister, Head of Security Forces, this most brutal and reprehensible act by criminal gangs in central Clarendon is totally intolerant. It's designed to disrupt and terrorize an entire community. We will respond with the most severe action to disrupt the criminals and reassure the law-abiding citizens. Intelligence indicates inter-gang collaboration in these areas, and I have accepted recommendations from the security forces to have extensive areas of curfews across the central, southern Clarendon, south and northern St. Catherine, where gangs collaborate. This incident comes at a time when the security forces have been doing extensive work in these areas. In fact, in all the 3 police divisions, there have been significant reduction in homicides. Clarendon, in fact, enjoys a 39% reduction in homicides for this year, reflects hard, coordinated work between all elements of the security forces, intelligence, operation, and the geographic divisions. The overall reduction in homicide was at 17% up to yesterday before this particular incident. The month of August, in fact, had a significant continuation of the fall in homicides. In fact, we're 29 behind before this particular incident. 23 compared to 54. That kind of reduction brings a level of calm to our communities. This kind of terrorist activity is designed to disrupt that. The death of one child and the injury to another one is particularly traumatic to the community. Not only intolerant, but will involve the strongest measures from the security forces. We value the lives of our children. All elements of the security forces, Jamaica Defense Force, The Constabulary Force, supported by MOCA, will be mobilized, led by the police force, of course, in the areas identified. They'll have the full support of the government. We'll find and apprehend, disrupt, and degrade the criminal gangs as is required. The social support services of government will also be brought to bear in the relevant community of Cherry Tree Lane and across the areas where the gangs have taken action to disrupt our lives of our citizens. All action will be started immediately, and the security forces provide those. I will, in fact, as I said, accept the recommendation for extensive curfews across the central, southern Clarendon, north and south St. Catherine as required to give the police the required powers to find, apprehend, and disrupt the gangs in these areas. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It is indeed a sad day for all Jamaica. First, let me begin by extending my deepest condolences to the families and loved ones of those whose lives were brutally snuffed out in this dastardly incident. I feel the pain and share the distress of the families, the loved ones, the communities, and indeed the entire Jamaica. And I also pray for the recovery of those who were injured. I stand here today with firm resolve that everyone, and I mean everyone, who was in any way involved in this incident will be brought to justice. I want to make that absolutely clear. The incident is one which cannot be allowed to stand in any way, lest it become the normal routine of criminals. It is a criminal act. It is against our laws. It is an attack on the public order. But I want you to consider for a moment that it goes beyond the victims. It goes beyond the community in which it was perpetrated. It is an attack on every Jamaican. It is an attack on every community. The intention was not only to harm the victims. The intention was not only to spread terror in the local community. No, this act is designed to spread terror in the nation. This is an act of terror. So it can't be treated as ordinary criminality. And that is why we convened the National Security Council this morning. We deliberated for much longer than we had anticipated because there are many issues involved, issues which we will not go into today, but which the nation should be assured that we are examining all dimensions of this terror act. We know that persons overseas are involved and connected in this act. We know that persons who are incarcerated presently have connections in this act. We know that multiple gangs are connected and involved in this act. Every gang, every person who in any way facilitated, provided the arms, or were involved and pulled the trigger themselves, we will find you and we will bring you to justice. I want that to be absolutely clear. We will not treat this as another criminal act. We will treat this as an act of terror. Therefore, we have given directions to the security forces to launch an all-out assault on the gangs that are involved, indeed any gang that is involved. There is no way that 8 persons can be killed in one incident in Jamaica and the state stands as if nothing happened. No. Every gang member, every gang will feel the full force of the state today. This must never happen again in Jamaica. Last year, November, another act of terror took place where a gangster with a high-powered weapon shot up a public passenger vehicle and killed 2 innocent children. I made the commitment that they would be found and brought to justice. And indeed, they were. Today, I make a similar commitment. And everyone who is involved in this will be brought to justice, in whichever form the justice is visited upon them. We have played with gangs for far too long. We have treated them as if they were Robin Hoods. Communities have been too sympathetic to them. Communities have given them succor and protection. We must use this as the opportunity to draw the line finally in the sand and to separate the gangs from our communities. The gangs are not merely youngsters who are poor and dispossessed. If you have that view, you are under a disillusion. You're misguided. The gangs are, some of them, 2nd and 3rd generation, meaning that they have transitioned from just street-level operations to higher-level coordinated activities to transnational, and some of them have transitioned into business. The gangs are organized economic enterprises. They parade as if they are in the community to protect you, but no, that's not what they're there for. They are there to use your community as cover to carry out illegal activities and to make profit from it. They are there to organize violence. I want you to think carefully on what happened yesterday, last night. Someone had to acquire a vehicle. Someone had to acquire high-powered weapons and the ammunition. Someone had to plan, whether it is to gather the intelligence that an event was being kept. Someone was probably there as a lookout. Someone had to probably call in others to come in who could do the shooting. This was coordinated. So this is what we call organized armed violence. And this level of planned, organized armed violence must be addressed unequivocally. It is not a problem affecting Jamaica alone. It is becoming a feature right across the Caribbean and Central America, and indeed in Latin America generally, and even in North America. So we cannot allow this incident to be treated merely as another criminal act. It is not merely a criminal act. Organized armed violence is an act of terror, and we must treat them as criminal terrorists. So the security forces have been given the direction. Operations are already underway from all levels: intelligence, from the kinetic operations in the field, to seeking the support of our partners to get those who are overseas, who are facilitating and directing and funding the criminal operations here. No stone will be left unturned. I want to give the Jamaican people the reassurance that your government will use this as the opportunity to deal with the gangs once and for all.
Thank you, PM, and thank you to all of the members of the NSC that spoke. We're going to go directly now to some questions from the media, and Naomi Francis will be leading us through that segment. Thank you.
So once again, we ask the members of the media to please identify yourselves, preferably one question so we don't have too many compound questions, and we'll be able to go through as efficiently as possible.
Good morning, Kimone Francis from The Gleaner. Prime Minister, in December 2022, you told the nation that a list was given to Washington of criminals. What are the fruits of that, or what have been the fruits of that decision?
Yes, I made 2 trips to Washington, where I met with the Department of Justice, and we have provided those lists, 31 names, I believe, and they are still under, well, I don't want to say too much, but the cooperation with our partners continue. And as I said, I have to be very careful what information I give, but certainly the cooperation continues with the Department of Justice, and indeed with all the other agencies. By the way, when we visited the Department of Justice, we met with several entities in law enforcement in the United States, and our cooperation continues with them, which is why I've said that in this particular instance, where we know that there are connections overseas, we will be pursuing it, given the channels that we have opened with our cooperation with our overseas partners.
Next question.
Good morning, Alyssa Willis from The Observer. PM, just yesterday or today, we reported on the efforts as it relates to prosecution of individuals who facilitate the introduction of prohibited items behind bars, so the cellular phone devices. It was mentioned this morning that there was activity from behind bars linked to this particular incident. I just wanted to know, you did say that you would be addressing it at all levels, but as it relates to the participation of whether correctional officers or so on in getting these prohibited items into the hands of inmates, what will be the focus there?
Well, there are 2 issues here. One is legislative. We made an amendment to the law. My recollection, I believe it would have been Minister Chang, if you could give us an explanation on that. I think we made an amendment to the legislation. There is a new legislation being drafted for the Corrections Act, which will incorporate the whole business of how contraband is treated with. But from an operational standpoint, as I've said, all dimensions of this incident is being reviewed. So the persons who pulled the trigger, to everyone who facilitated, to everyone who is presently hiding, and everyone who knows where they are and do not communicate it to us, you become implicated in the stream of facilitation of this crime. So let me take this opportunity, therefore, to ask the public for their cooperation. If you know anything, please tell us. If you have any information, even if you believe it's of no use, please let us know. And for those persons who may think that they are safe in hiding these persons who have committed the crimes, you are mistaken. Minister, you want to say something?
Yeah. The act was amended in 2021 to ensure that we can more severe penalties for those who breach the act and take banned goods into the prisons. Work is being done to strengthen various activity. In fact, we have just concluded a contract to introduce the camera system and more extensive system in the correctional system and to build out the intelligence service within there. The work is proceeding. We have a new director of corrections who has extensive experience in the security area, and they're working with the entire correctional service to, in fact, strengthen our intelligence product from the area, as well as, and apply the law as required.
That's it.
Williams from Television Jamaica. I'm sure ACP Bailey will be able to speak to this in regards to DCP, sorry. In regards to whether or not, I know it's early days, a motive or the intended target has been established as yet. And also we tend to shy away from the term mass murder. Would you say this is in fact a mass murder?
If I may, I will answer the last question. We believe it's an act of terror. The Prime Minister made reference to criminal terrorism, and we believe that is an act of terror. We have established some motives. We believe that it is gang-related, reprisal for the death of someone who was killed in Clarendon, but I don't want to get into too much detail in respect of that, but we have established motives.
Well, DCP, I think you might also want to make an appeal to those persons. I was encouraging DCP to make an appeal to those persons who may want to take matters into their own hands, who may want to go out and on their own seek reprisals. If you do that, you then become of interest to us, and you are a part of the problem and not the solution. Leave these matters to the security forces to address. They will be addressed swiftly and by the law. As I pointed out, the last time I described an act as an act of terror was the killing in St. James in Salt Spring, when this criminal shot up a public passenger transport, killed 3 persons, including 2 innocent children. And at that point, I committed that we would move all the resources to finding the perpetrators. Within weeks, we did. And I'm not giving myself weeks. I've said to the DCP Bailey that we must start to see results very soon.
Thank you, sir. Next question.
Good morning, Natalie Campbell of Area FM. How much can the police say now about how many gangs were involved, and which gangs, as if, can you name them at this point? Or name them at this point?
I would, on behalf of DCP Bailey, say we will not give out any information as to which gang and how many. What I will say is that, on behalf of DCP, just quickly, that our activities as it relates to treating with gangs has been very successful. We had on our books, DCP, remind me, we had about almost 380 gangs, active gangs. Over the last 2 years, we have eroded that down to about 250 gangs now. So our actions have been yielding results. This incident runs against the trend of what we have been doing. But what it shows is that even as we are degrading the gangs, that the ability for gangs to organize and arm themselves and produce violence that goes beyond the victim to affect a nation, that capability still exists, and therefore we must intensify our operational intelligence and strategic stance to further erode and eliminate gangs from our society.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Ricardo Brooks, Nationwide News. Hear you on the short-term operational measures that will be pursued. But over the long term, what has happened to the enhanced security measures bill that was supposed to be brought to Parliament? Has your administration abandoned that? And you've used the word terror and terrorism frequently this morning. Do you think it may be now time for you to codify in legislation that these people who commit these kinds of crimes should be labeled or designated domestic terrorists and give the security forces special powers to treat with them?
Grateful for those questions, Ricardo. Firstly, my response here is not short term, though it is immediate. This will be the operational and strategic stance of the JCF, the JDF, MOCA, and all our other intelligence modalities going forward. What I have declared here is a total assault on gangs in Jamaica. I want that to be clearly understood. Operationally, they must go after every gang in Jamaica. The gangs that have been identified as being directly responsible for this action are connected with other gangs. And so we must pull the thread to where it leads. So today, every gang leader should take with themselves. In terms of what needs to be done, we obviously hit upon political resistance and a few snags as it relates to the change in the legislative environment, whether it is in the use of the SOEs, trying to get consensus as to what exceptional powers could be put in an enhanced security measure. I believe we may have reached some level of understanding with the opposition. As we do this, we always bear in mind that Jamaica is a country where the rule of law is paramount and the protection of human rights will never be compromised, no matter how hard we go at the criminal gangs. The country can be assured that as a liberal democracy, as a country that believes in the freedom and the rights of its citizens, that this government will never do anything to injure that. So as we move legislatively, it's a slower process to make sure that we get the balance right between the rights of the citizens and being able to hit the criminals hard. So it moves much slower than in other jurisdictions. So this morning, for example, Ricardo, someone sent me a note showing me what the president of El Salvador has done. And I was at pains to point out that Jamaica is not El Salvador. And of course, you will know that if we did something here using SOEs and other measures which were very mild relative to what, and you would have seen the level of opposition that was brought to it. My own view is that if we had stuck with the strategies that had been in place, we would have moved not just from 400 gangs to 250. We would have been way down to probably less than 100 gangs now. Oh, I've just updated by Minister Chang. We are now at 185 active gangs. After this, we intend to be way below that. So the security forces have now been given, after our National Security Council meeting, the directive, go after every single gang, erode them. I've used the term terror, an act of terror, and I've used the words criminal terrorists. We have not encoded or enshrined that in any legislation. We do have an Anti-Terrorism Act, but I'm using it because we have discussed it at the National Security Council, and it is a part of the conversation about how we frame the new Enhanced Security Measures Act when we eventually frame it. But we have introduced that in the lexicon to describe certain acts that are over and above, just ordinary criminal act. Clearly, an act of terror is a criminal act, but when there is an element of it which is designed to drive fear over and above the victim, designed to spread fear nationally in the society that affects the confidence of the society, then clearly that is the definition of terror.
Morning, Tiffany Price from The Star. Prime Minister, last year the government implemented more stricter policies for illegal ammunition and guns. Why do you believe that this is not, getting the intended deterrent effect?
My advice that I've been given as it relates to the impact of the new measures that we have put in place, including changing the law to have mandatory minimum sentences, is that it has been having an impact. It has been having a positive impact on the use of firearms. And you would see that in a decline in the number of shootings and a decline in the number of murders and a general decline in crimes overall. Remember, you're dealing with a problem that has emerged for the last 50 years. It is not going to overnight disappear. And bear in mind that as we were trying to put in stronger measures, there are those who are determined to have those stronger measures fail. There are those who are opposed to these stronger measures. So it is not as if that the government was at large in just unilaterally declaring stronger measures and expect that they would work. As journalists, you should do the research and pull back the statements that have been made against the stronger measures and see how those statements now stand up to the scrutiny of the families of the victims of these crimes. For too long, we have been speaking in favor of criminals and not in support of victims. We need stronger measures to finally bring to a halt the use of dangerous weapons like M16s. Assault rifles, by the way, it was an assault rifle, an M16 that was used in this shooting. Now, could we reasonably argue that this person who used the M16 should not suffer the most severe consequence of the law? Thank you, everyone.